Hi, welcome back to Matthew Explores. I'm Matthew, this is Bronte, and today we're wandering around Arlington Reservoir in East Sussex. We're not just going to walk the trail, we're going to dive back in time to Roman roads, Ice Age tusks, woolly rhinoceroses and the 20th century engineering. Let's dive in. Arlington Reservoir sits between Polegate and Berwick, hugging the foot of the South Downs. Not far from the chalk figures of the Long Man of Wilmington, the old River Cuckmere once meandered through this land. Now its course is straightened to the east of the reservoir. The reservoir and its surroundings are now protected as a local nature reserve and a site of special scientific interest. People come here to birdwatch, fish, walk and just soak in the nature. But the story of how this peaceful lake came to be is full of surprises. Before the reservoir, this land was far from empty. Archaeological work at Willoughby's farm, just adjacent to the area, has revealed evidence of a Roman settlement, a major road, cremation burials, pottery kilns and iron smelting activity. The finds include flint surfaces of Roman roads, post holes and large quantities of bloomery slag, remnants from early iron smelting. During the reservoir's construction in September 1969, the soils were stripped, subsoils removed and local workers spotted potsherds, kiln flues and other Roman era artifacts in the exposed clay. Even before the water arrived, you had layers upon layers of human and natural history underfoot. The Big Dig, the construction started in the 1960s and continued into the early 1970s. Construction era seems to have kicked off around 1969 with contractors removing topsoil and clay at Pole Hill's farm just west of the Cuckmere to form the embankments and shape the reservoir's basin. Engineers diverted the natural river's course to the east, building embankments to hold back the new water basin. At times, locals and naturalists catalogued the process. It was quite a local event, and this event is described on arlingtonvillage.co.uk for those who would like some further information. Most of the sources put the official completion opening around 1971, and that's when the reservoir began functioning as a major water supply. Some fishing blogs sources say the late 1970s, but these are likely to be exaggerations referring to later modifications. So the working timeline we're going by is the late 1960s construction, 1969 the major earthworks and 1971 the functional opening. Why build Arlington? Simple, a growing demand for drinking water in East Sussex. This was part of meeting the needs of towns like Eastbourne, Hailsham and Polegate, and also the many neighbouring villages. The site now covers roughly 120 acres, though some sources list larger surrounding reserve area figures. Maximum depths are not always consistently reported, however local fishing reports cite deep ends used by the anglers. Today, with another reservoir at Ardingly, though in another county, South East Water manages these to supply about 8% of the water for its 2.1 million customers in the region. One of my favourite bits during the construction, workers found woolly rhinoceros skulls, mammoth tusks and bison horns, reportedly dating back 250,000 years. These finds hint that long before humans this valley was home to a megafauna of wandering between glacial and interglacial landscapes. It's a quirky thought that beneath your feet were once stomping grounds of the rhinos and mammoths, right here in East Sussex. Once filled, the reservoir quickly became a magnet for wildlife, especially birds. In the winter you'll find large numbers of widgeons, ducks like shoveler and teal and waterfowl congregating. Great crested grebes are regulars and you'll see cormorants, herons, coots and the occasional little egrets. Migrants are part of the excitement, warblers, wagtails, swallow flocks and in the warmer seasons ospreys are not resident but they sometimes visit to hunt fish over the open water, especially during the migration windows. Within the reserve's zones you also see species like dormice, nightingales and great crested newts in the wetter margins of the scrubland areas. One fun fact, over 1% of the UK's wintering widgeons are said to use the site. That makes Arlington nationally significant for that species. Don't ask me to try and pick apart all these different birds because I'm no bird spotter, and I probably wouldn't recognise most of them. People love it here. The Osprey Trail, which is what we are walking on today, is the walking route with the hides and the markers focusing on bird life and nature. There's a car park near Berwick, a cafe, kiosk, toilets, dog amenities and way markers with symbols to tell you where to look and what to look for. Local anglers refer to it as a trout reservoir with beautiful banks and spots for casting. One interesting historical bit, Arlington Village website says that the local residents and naturalists documented the construction progress with photographs and notes because the transformation of the area was so dramatic and of real local interest. Once again, maybe check out arlingtonvillage.co.uk. Because of its wildlife importance, Arlington was designated a site of special scientific interest in relation to biology in 1985. Conservation measures including coppicing, scrub control, reed bed management, protection of nesting areas and limiting disturbance by asking visitors to keep dogs on leads in sensitive areas. The surrounding land is actively managed to support woodland species, grassland insects and rare small mammals like dormice and amphibians. Here's some fun facts. Arlington's water supply contributes to the towns including Eastbourne, Hailsham and Polegate. Some sources report late 1970s as the creation area, likely referencing the finishing touches or modifications rather than the main build. The reservoir shoreline is roughly 3 kilometres in circumference, cited in some local listings. The Church of St Pancras, not far off, traces back to Saxon and medieval times and has been an important local landmark throughout the centuries. And local law, while building unexpected dark patches in the clay, prompted salvage excavations looking for Roman remains before the flooding of the area was initiated. Arlington's reservoir is a story of transformation from meandering river to Roman roads and kilns to a modern water supply and now thriving nature reserve. The timeline may blur in some sources. Construction in the late 1960s, major work in 69, opening around 71 and its SSSI designation in 1985. But that gives you a narrative arc that we can use today. It's one of those places where engineering meets ecology, where walking with your dog can also be a walk through time. If you've enjoyed this dive into local history and nature, hit like, subscribe to Matthew Explores and ring that bell so Bronte and I can bring you some more adventures. And until next time, keep exploring. That's all from me at Matthew Explores. Bye for now.